we're not just resting on that growth factor, using more management resources to explore. I'll be honest with you. There was a point in time where we were thinking that we might have to not give a dividend last year. Kasi, di ba, it looked so bleak. And that gave us time to really reflect, should we still continue to pay the dividend? This would be something easy for us to do, but we don't want to step on the toes of our customers. In this crisis, the non-food side made up for the slack in the food side.
Before I head off to my next question, I was curious, you mentioned about exports. How was the strong peso impacted or affected your revenue in terms of exports, given that the currency has really moved to the other direction compared to where it was the past few years?
So the peso strengthened by roughly 4 or 5% in the last 2 years, I think. Pero before that, the peso had depreciated by, I think it's like 20+% in the last, in the years before. But what we show in that chart, and I'll just verbally explain it, we actually change our selling prices when our costs change. So it means that we don't absorb that risk, whether it's Forex or whether it's change related to the cost of the underlying raw materials. We constantly change our selling prices. And therefore, from a profit or margin perspective, we actually don't feel the volatility, whether it's in the raw material cost or the Forex.
I want to segment into this now, and I'm a big fan of companies that don't stretch themselves too much in terms of debt. Some people like companies that are very, very good in leveraging, but I like companies that are cash rich and are not overextending themselves. And from what I know historically, DNL is a company that's very, very conservative in terms of taking on debt. May I know the rationale behind that, and do you plan to change that soon, that all of a sudden in the next few years you might be more aggressive? Because we have lower interest rates right now, and a lot of companies have been taking advantage of the low rates as well.
So one of the big learnings we have as a 50-plus-year-old company is that when it comes to doing business in the Philippines, you can never be too cautious. We've been, since the 70s, 80s, 90s, almost every 10 years, one huge crisis hits the Philippines. And so it doesn't pay to be over leveraged or to take too much risk. So that's one side of it. I think the other way to look at this, our businesses in general, the operations tend to be quite steady. I mentioned earlier, our fixed costs are quite low.
Yep.
So it means that our businesses tend to have quite good cash flow. So that means we don't really need to borrow a lot to continue to operate. Now, we do have a big expansion being built in Batangas, the one we talked about earlier. Total spend for that expansion by D&L, at least just on the capex side, is going to be or will be around 8 billion pesos. So likely we will need to borrow more to finance the finishing of the expansion. However, our net gearing as of third quarter 2020 was still at around 8%. So meaning our net debt, so your debt minus the cash you have on hand divided by your equity, that's the net gearing. It's only 8%. So it's very, very, it's quite low. Our interest cover, I can't remember the exact number, but it's over 10 times, I believe. So talagang there's a lot of room to borrow more. But yes, you're right. We will not be the kind of company that overextends itself or borrows too much. We're always conscious about our relationships with our banks or lenders. We want them to sleep well at night also, diba?
From an investor point of view also, that's nice because it gives you also some sort of predictability in my opinion, because you won't know how rates will be 5, 10, 15 years from now.
Exactly.
You also won't know how your income will be that long, and
that's right.
having cash is something that will somehow protect you also. And I think that's nice, and not a lot of people see it that way, but that's what I look at, that gives companies strength to maneuver testing lines like this.
That's right. You know, the other way to look at this, it's good to have what's called mababing utang mo, because you never know when an opportunity will come by. And dapat when that opportunity comes, may bala ka, may capability ka to, whether it's to buy or to invest or to acquire. So you know, we're always looking for an opportunity. If it comes up, at least we can borrow more if that opportunity comes, if it makes sense. Diba? So that's the other way to look at it. Ready kami anytime an opportunity comes.
In your opinion, what do you think is DNL's biggest durable competitive advantage that would make it last for years to come?
Well, it's several, I think. One, we have a very strong focus on R&D. But that focus on R&D is closely tied to having a good sense of the needs of the customer. And so basically, since we know the needs of the customer and then we have the R&D capability, that's what allows us to continue to come up with the products that our customers need. And not many companies are built like that. So that's one big advantage that we have. I think another advantage we have is our people. You know, everyone. So not a lot of people know this, but we have 17 members of the Lao family actively involved in the company. And, you know, so usually investors only see me because I'm the CEO and the face of the company, but I have 16 backers behind me. So, mas hindi ako takot kasi I know that, you know, the 16 other family members are strongly behind me and they're trying as hard as well to build the business up. And then all the other people in the organization as well, who are also very dedicated, very capable of continuing to compete in the markets, and whether it's in R&D or production or sales. So I would say that would probably be our biggest advantage. It's all the people we have in the company.
Okay. Personal question, not connected to the company, but you mentioned there's 16 of you in the Lao family.
17.
17
Yes.
of you in the Lao family working in the company. What made you decide to work for the family business when you started out, instead of building your own path and carving your own business as well?
By the time I finished my MBA, I had already been away from the Philippines for 10 years. And I was kind of missing the Philippines. I was missing home. I was missing the food, you know, the Pinoy sense of humor. And so I told my dad, I think I want to come back. And I'll work with you for a year. If things work out, then I'll stay. If not, I'll do my own thing. So pumayag siya. And so I'm still here.
Did they pay you in your first year?
Oh yeah. Meron naman. Yeah. Meron naman. Bawal yung slave labor, diba? That's against the law.
Got it. I have a lot of friends nagrereklamo sa magulang nila.
Oh, yeah.
Anyways, given that you are the one leading the company right now, where do you see DNL? And where do you see DNL in the next 5 years, and how do you plan to make it grow even further?
So we're lucky in the sense that we're in a growing economy. We're also in a space where the demands are growing and the needs of the consumer are continuing to change. And that change is leading to more demand for what we do. So that's one avenue of growth for us. That's kind of like parang built in na. Because we're in the Philippines, it's a growing economy. On the other hand, we're not just resting on that growth factor. We're building that plant in Batangas, which where we can export. So that's a second growth driver that we're looking at, and that is something, export. The thrust on exports wasn't such a big focus for us before, but it's something that we're using more management resources to explore. And that's something I would believe the next 5 to 10 years we will likely be focusing on more.
And I think that's something that's very, very noble, because for the longest time, it's the rest of the world trying to sell to the Philippines. And I really believe it's time for the Philippines to have something homegrown that we get to sell more and more to the rest of the world also. So that
that's right.
Us being consumers into all of this.
That's right.
I want to segment into dividends. Last year, you still gave out dividends in the midst of the pandemic, where a lot of other companies slashed their dividends to zero. Some went to literally zero. May I know the rationale behind that? And given how you performed last year, would dividends still be good also as well?
Okay, so I mentioned earlier that despite the pandemic, we did see a big drop in our revenue in the second quarter. And, I'll be honest with you, there was a point in time where we were thinking that we might have to not give a dividend last year. Kasi, di ba, it looks so bleak. But, and so what we did, our shareholders meeting is in June, and that's normally where we announce our dividend. But I think June was still GCQ in Manila, and it didn't make sense to push through with a shareholders meeting. So we decided to push it to September. And that gave us time to really reflect, should we still continue to pay the dividend? To give you a little history, our dividend policy when we did our IPO in 2012, it was a 25% payout, meaning every year we made a commitment to our investors to pay out as a dividend at least 25% of our earnings from the previous year. And so from the IPO 2012 for a couple of years, the policy was 25%, although we were paying out more. And then eventually we realized that as a company, since our cash flow is good, we can actually afford to pay a higher payout, and we could actually improve or change our policy. And that's what we did a couple of years ago. We increased the commitment from 25% to 50%. And so since the IPO, we've never missed that regular dividend. We've also been paying a special dividend on top. In the last couple of years, a special was roughly 14%. So yung nangyari 2020, we decided to push through with a regular 50%. Although we did not give that special. Yan yung, I guess that was the cost of the pandemic. So 2021, we'll see, if things are back to normal, I think there's a good chance that regular will still be there. It will still remain. Yung question na lang is yung will we go back to paying a special?
Got it. And I think if the dividend, even if you slashed it even further last year, it would have been understandable given the current situation. A lot of people would understand it, especially there were others that literally went to zero for 2020. But I'm sure a lot of dividend investors are happy of the way you explained it. And this is way back already. You had like 100% stock dividend in 2015. That's something that I've been meaning to ask and wanting to know why did you do it at that time?
Okay, so one reason was that time the stock price. So the IPO was 2012. So in 3 years, the stock price had gone up by several times.
Yep.
From 4 peso 30 cents yung IPO. I think we went to like
20 yata, no? 21?
Yeah, parang ganyan. Yeah, like 4 or 5 times. So we were feeling na, mukhang mahal tayo. Pero from a PE basis, actually, when you compare it to the general market PE. And then since we sell a lot to food companies, some people associated our stock with consumer companies also. From compared to other consumer companies, our PE was lower. So we felt, yes, it's gone up a lot. Pero one reason it went up a lot, sobrang baba naman kasi yung IPO price namin. Kasi when di ba, we didn't have any brands. Walang nakakilala sa kumpanya namin. And so when we did the IPO, the PE was only around 11 times. So yes, tumaas na nga yung price, but a big reason for that is because the IPO price wasn't priced as a consumer company. It was priced as a manufacturing company. We had no choice. But now the market was educated about us. They knew about us, and we saw that the market was willing to pay a higher price. We thought we need to find a way to adjust the price, but still adjust the price lower, but to keep the investors happy. So we thought about a stock split, and then we realized, if we do 100% stock dividend, meaning for every one share you own, you get another share. There's actually no impact on the market cap. There's actually no impact to investors to be realistic about it. If your shares were worth, let's say, 20 pesos a share, you're not going to have two shares. Total worth will still be 20 pesos. So each share worth 10 pesos na lang. So from an investor perspective, there's actually no change in terms of the value you're holding. But psychologically, instead of a 20 peso share, you're now holding a 10 peso share. It doesn't look that expensive anymore. But, again, it's appearances. But what we felt was that, instead of doing a stock split, we could do 100% stock dividend. And so that's what we did. And so in reality, the cost of D&L shares today, it's not the original IPO price of 4 peso and 30 cents. It's divided by 2 peso and 15 cents. That's the real cost of the IPO. But a lot of people still remember the IPO was 4 peso 30. So in a way, we don't seem to be as expensive. So that was the logic.
Got it. It's so weird nga. When every time I talk to people, some just look at the price. They don't look at how is it compared to the market cap or its PE or its PB as well. But I agree that there's a very, very large psychological point of view into all of this.
Yes.
So, we're about to round up this interview. I always end the videos with something very, very encouraging, because I know there are a lot of entrepreneurs also that watch videos like this, and a lot of them got hit also during the pandemic. Some of them lost severely a lot of chunk of their sales and revenue. What's the biggest learning that you got from the pandemic? And is there anything that you want to impart to people that got hit or totally lost everything from 2020?
Probably the most important is to just never give up and to never lose hope. There's always hope. Pag may kakapitan ka lang, just always believe that there's hope. I think that's the biggest thing we got out of this pandemic.
And sometimes hope is so important that hope needs to be alive in people, because when hope is alive, it gives them something to anchor themselves on, to move forward and not stop. So
that's right.
Totally agree with that. I get a lot of questions, at least in YouTube, asking, may ganito akong capital, ano magandang business na simulan? So I'll flip that question to you. What if you would start from zero tomorrow, then you would having siguro the same knowledge that you have right now, and knowing what are the prevailing trends in the Philippines and globally, what business would you start and why, and how would you build it up as well?
It's very tempting to makiuso ka, di ba? Maraming mga startups, fintech. Pero, at the end of the day, if you really think about it, what we do today is still very relevant. There's still strong demand for the products and the services that we offer. So I would probably just start exactly the same thing we're doing now. The need is there, and the Philippines is a growing country, and that need will continue to increase. So, and it's not a sexy business, meaning it's not the kind of business where you would see the new grads want to go into, unlike, diba, fintech or what have you. I think that's where the vast majority of younger kids are interested to go into. So I'll stick with the old boring business where no one really wants to go into it, but we know the demand is growing, and it's still a good business to be in.
And I guess that's where you always double down on where your skill and experience is as well. And you said it's not exciting, but this is what I've realized. It's the boring things that make you rich. Also, it's sometimes it's not. People always gravitate to the ones that are exciting, but sometimes it's something that's boring, that is steady and could give you a great rate of return also for years.
Yes, I agree.
Any final words for people that are watching this? People who are subscribed that are probably invested in DNL, or investors that also want to study the company more?
I think there's a lot of material out there already that talks about us. So maybe just again, going back to the biggest lessons we learned from the pandemic, and this applies, I think, not just to stock investors, but to people in general. It's the importance of mindset and attitude. It would have been so easy to just give up and to let despair overwhelm you when things looked so dark and so bleak. But so a lot of people talked about mental health, diba, during the pandemic, and making sure people are still okay, the employees of the company is still okay, and so on. That's something, I think, it's an awareness that we're going to see more of, and it's not just applicable during a pandemic, but sobrang important, that importance of mindset and attitude. And it applies very much to investors as well. When your stock's down, when the market's down, don't lose despair, because down siya ngayon, but later on it's going to be up. I've experienced that many times before. Kailan ba yan? After Asian financial crisis, my portfolio was down, I think, like 75% or some huge number. But I just didn't give up. I didn't look at stocks that much anymore. But I didn't, sell everything and resign, or I just held on. And then, true enough, after a couple of years, balik siya. And then it actually not only came back to the original 100%, it actually doubled from there pa. So anything can happen. So just don't lose hope, especially if you have conviction, why you bought the stock and the prospects of the company. I think that's what's really important, the mindset, the attitude.
Yep, and that's why I appreciate videos like this, because it gives people also a glimpse of what the company is. That I hope that to everyone watching this, that they go beyond the ticker, they go beyond the number, they do a deep dive on the company, because it's their money, it's their responsibility, that they have to really, really know what they're buying. And thank you so much, Alvin Lao, for giving us a glimpse also of how DNL is and how you're running it and its plans for the future and how it's innovating as well.
Marvin, maraming salamat for having me. It's been a good experience talking to you. I enjoyed it. Thank you very much. And good luck to you. Good luck to your investors.
Thank you. But before I let you go, we do this fun part. It's called Fast Talk. I'm sure you know how it works. 2 options, no right or wrong. Whatever comes out of the top of your head. So, ready?
Okay, sure.
Let's do this. Jordan or LeBron?
Jordan.
Steak or salmon?
Steak.
London or New York?
London.
Winter or summer?
Winter.
Success or significance?
Significance.
Large, massive mansion or travel the world?
Travel the world.
Win one time, but never lose at all? or win 100 times but you lose 50 times in the process?
I'd rather win 100 times.
Work hard, work smart.
Work smart.
US dollar, euro.
Dollar.
Bitcoin, gold.
Gold.
Fitness, finance.
Fitness.
City or country?
City.
Condo or house?
House.
Beach or mountains?
Beach.
Cut loss or hold on and fight for the business?
I'm a holder.
Die with a lot of money or die fulfilling purpose?
Never money, always purpose.
I think you already answered it, but lastly, money or love?
Love.
Okay. Thank you so much, Alvin Lao. And to everyone, I hope you guys learned a lot from this, and I hope that this gave you enough insight also on DNL from a qualitative and quantitative point of view. And I hope this helps you, and I hope this helps you trade well, trade strong, trade smart. See you all again soon, and God bless you all.